Hey guys, yeah, so I'm not a super organized person, so a lot of the storylines that I've given have not been put together really well. And this is one of those times where this happened several years ago, and the seasons in my life have not been a linear progression forward. And same with like the gangstalking experiences. They've kind of happened in seasons, like two main times where they happened, both several years apart. And for me, I believe that in both instances, the gang stalking and the oppression that I experienced pushed me towards God. It what's the word I'm looking for? Gosh. It polarized good and evil, and made me pick a side. It was like I was on the fence both times, wanting God but choosing to live in darkness through bad habits of sin and just sin cycles that I was stuck in. So for me, that's kind of been my story. It's been gang stalking for me has been a corrective measure that I believe God allowed, kind of taking his hand back and allow the enemy to press me, and so I would turn to him fully, right? Because I'm stubborn, and I needed that both times. It needed to be life or death for me, Otherwise, I just kind of continue in my misery, even though it's really bad, right? I just kind of push through. But when you're faced with real evil on every side, and the source of your help is God, it's like eventually you're either gonna continue putting yourself in these sketchy situations like I was, or turn away from them and trust in the Lord fully, even when it was really hard, right? So I don't know why I'm getting into all that. Maybe that's the case for some of you. It's not always the case. I don't know fully why the gang stalking happens to people all the time. You're going to hear 100 different reasons. But one thing that I've realized through my experiences is just how focusing on what's going on all the time on the surface, on the physical, is not helpful. And any physical reason that you can muster up why this is happening to you just doesn't check out with me. And even if technology and stuff is being used, like the root of people's decisions to use that against people, that's evil, And there's a there's a definite demonic influence going on that controls the whole experience. And sometimes you're gonna see it rear its head. Sometimes you're gonna see it, like the veil come down a bit, and you're gonna see the evil in people, the manifestation of it. I've had a lot of that all throughout my experiences, like where I could tell this wasn't just normal encounters or people acting. This was like next level darkness in people. Sometimes it seemed like they weren't even aware that they were getting used, to do this. And it has to be that way, in my opinion. It has to be spiritually coordinated, and It's too precise on the timing and the scope of it. Is just like it makes no sense that there would be that many people that are willing to revolve their life around someone like me. Like, I'm not that important. Especially when I was doing what I was doing at the time. You know, I was doing drugs. I was not doing anything that would warrant people following me, threatening me, and trying to hinder me and stalk, harass, whatever the case may be. I wasn't deserving of that type of attention from people. It didn't make any sense physically. But spiritually, it makes complete sense, right? Especially where I'm at now. I'm at a spot now where I'm following the Lord, and I want to serve the Lord and expose darkness, and teaching others to walk with the Lord. You know, I'm not saying I've arrived or anything, but all this was happening at a time where I didn't really understand my identity or my purpose or my calling, who I was, what I was meant to do. But I had chosen to follow Christ, and then all this stuff started. That's not always the case. Some people fall into an understanding of God through the gang stalking. Some people reject it. But the ones that I see get better, whether that's complete freedom from gang stalking or just being able to navigate around it without having as much of an effect, are those that understand, you know, we're not fighting against flesh and blood. There's spirits. There's spirits in spiritual wickedness we're fighting against in the spiritual realm, right? Not just the physical. The physical is just how we're seeing it and interacting with it a lot of times. But there's things that are going on under the surface, right? And like I said, you're going to see glimpses of this. And it got so obvious for me after a while. It was just like I said, it just made no sense. I thought about it very logically for a while. And one thing I noticed is anything physical that you'll bite on, meaning you'll start to buy into and believe in, right? Any physical reason for what's happening, they will feed into, and even, you know, manipulate your surroundings to back up what you're believing. So it's almost like they're spoon feeding you like a storyline script. Okay, this is happening for this reason, and then there's going to be people that come around you that speak into that lie and try to fortify that lie and give you reasons why you're believing it. And the reason that I know this to be true is like that happened over and over and over again. The only thing that wouldn't be backed up would be any spiritual reason. As soon as I was thinking it's demonic, people would come and try to feed me, no, this is actually what's going on. And then I would run into things with other people who try to back it up, or, you know, other people who were supposedly going through the gang stalking, you know, maybe not. When I was going through it, I encountered some people who were telling me that, oh yeah, they get gang stalked too. They get, you know, and I'm sure you guys have experienced that. But then they start acting super weird or off as well. They just turn into another person, just like everyone else, right? So the only thing that wasn't told to me basically was the spiritual side of it. Anything else, they're cool with you believing, because there's really no leg to stand on at that point. If they get you focused on the physical, they can just spin you out on the physical. They can just string you along and create all these scenarios and this stuff on the surface and make it look any way they want to keep you trapped in it and keep you a victim. keep you from understanding how to fight it. And yeah, so I'm kind of going in a lot of different directions here, but I'm not the most organized person. And I don't know, hopefully this can be helpful for someone. Because yeah, it's been almost 3 years since I've had anything super obvious about it. I mean, I still have like weird situations here and there, but it's like very isolated. But as far as like gang stalking, I mean, almost nothing. And yeah, like I said, it's been a spiritual issue for me, and every time I've submitted to God and started doing what He wanted me to do, it's cleared up very quickly. But one thing about the whole situation is there'll be trauma produced from all this, right? When you walk through all these traumatic situations and confusing, high fear, high emotion situations, right? There's going to be an impact on you. You're going to get like PTSD to some degree, post-traumatic stress disorder, right? Because obviously, like, all this whole experience is definitely can be stressful, right? And they're going to put you in situations where probably you're in fear for your life. Probably people that are supposedly going to kill you. And even tell you that, at least in my case, that's what it was. So there'll be areas where you need to get healed from too. And that's where forgiveness and God come in even more so. And I've spoke about this in some of my videos, just the importance of forgiveness and just releasing all these offenses. We get offended by how we've been treated and how we've been messed with and tormented, and understandably, especially to the way of the world. The world will tell you that you have the right to be offended and want vengeance and hate-filled, and you've been hurt and you've been trampled over, and that's like, to the world's, oh sorry, there's almost a wreck right here. To the world's standard, that's fine and dandy, but that doesn't produce anything good. It actually reproduces evil, because then we start operating out of these hurts, and we're not able to see clearly, and all these things that were done to us just get perpetuated. And sorry, there's some weird stuff going on right now. I'm kind of in the hood right now. But we get to the spot where even if the gang stalking stops and we're not healed, we still have all this unresolved trauma and we're wounded. And if the enemy can't stop you from coming to a realization of who you are, they're going to try to hinder you on being effective. And if you're wounded, that's a hindrance, because you can't walk out what God wants you to walk out, freed, not having forgiveness or unforgiveness in your heart and bitterness, and you're free to love and to walk out the purpose that God has for you, right? Which is to love God with all your heart and to love others as yourself, right? So that's just something to be careful of too. Need to be healed, because one thing that I've realized is this whole gangstalking experience, right, can really affect how you see yourself and how you see the world, which is important because that's the filter you take everything through. And I can see this in people's lives, you know, gangstalking aside, is like when you have that victim mentality, you see everything through that lens. So one thing that someone says, you'll just like grab onto it and be like, oh, they're talking about me. If you have like shame, you know, or that wound, it's an access point to just be pulled around by that wound, right? Rejection is a huge one, you know, that you're gonna probably battle with, because like they're gonna wound you in that area. They're gonna try to make you see yourself as a person who is rejected, you know, cast off, whatever they can get away with, any wound, you know, because at the end of the day, you know, if they're hindering you from being who God created you to be, that's a win. You know, first they want you to not understand that at all. But if then you do understand that, they're going to want to hinder you, right? Because that makes you less effective in the kingdom of God. Because we're in a real war, you know, it's light versus darkness, right? And a lot of people are ignorant to that. But there's souls at stake, so it's a very big thing, right? So I don't know, I'm kind of rambling, but I'm just waiting on one of the guys right now is at a doctor's appointment, and I'm driving him to appointments, so I got some time on my hand. See what else. I don't know. I think that's about all I got to say today. I mean, there's a lot more, but I'm trying not to go in 47 directions. So I'll leave it up there. I'll cut that one here. Later.